I could not start a Shark Talk series on or a podcast about that without welcoming my mentor, one of the great person I really look at for shark diving, and of course the great Cristina Zenato. So thank you, Cristina, for joining us. Really great pleasure having you with us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone for joining.
Fantastic. So guys, just before going into the talk, I'm going to just go with you with some organization, and then we're going to head our way to the talk. So please make sure that you all have your microphone on mute. And then because actually the bandwidth and connection between all of that will be easier for that. If you have any questions, many of you already started putting in the chat, so that's a fantastic way of sending us questions. So whenever you have the question, just put it on the chat, and I'll be picking the question up as we go on the talk, and try to squeeze them as much as we can. Just also for your information, we will be recording, so if you would like to have your lovely face with us, fantastic, smiling. If not, you can, if you feel more comfortable closing your camera, that would be no problem as well. And we'll just keep Cristina with us as long as we can. So yeah, fantastic. So Cristina, if you'd like to start and give them introduction and get us underway, would be great.
So my name is Cristina Zenato. I'm originally from Italy. I have been living on the island of Grand Bahama, where I'm currently at the same time in this moment for the last 26 years. I am a PADI course director. I'm a cave diving instructor and explorer. I'm a kiss for a breather and technical instructor, all those sorts of titles. And I share my time between the ocean and the sharks, and also cave diving. My love for sharks come from my childhood dream to be an underwater scuba ranger who had sharks for friends. But my inspiration and my mentor was Ben Rose. Ben Rose was here when I landed on the island in 1994. I came here to become a certified diver, and in a week time I changed completely the course of my life. I dropped everything that I had back home, job, boyfriend, car, everything, and just moved here with 2 duffel bags and start from the bottom up to then become a diving professional. But Ben had already started a shark dive, the basic shark feeding, the concept of shark feeding, which was very unique at the time. And the idea that you could actually go and feed sharks, and the sharks would not turn around and eat you when you didn't feed them, is now more accepted, not completely accepted, more accepted. And hopefully we'll talk on this as you guys have some issues over there.
When was that, Cristina, when you started going to the Bahamas? When was it?
1994.
Fantastic. Okay.
I was 22 years old. You can do the math. So the concept was that he was on a dive feeding fish, and a Caribbean reef shark showed up, and Ben basically had the fish in his hand, and he just literally threw the fish like, and the shark bit the fish and swam away. And when he swam away, Ben was like, hey, look at that, I just fed a shark. And that was the beginning of this. And then the shark came around and just stayed within a certain distance of Ben, and looked as in to say, do you have more? So I came in on the tail end of that, of this beginning of the shark dive and figuring out how to do a shark dive procedures, containers, and all of that. And I started training under Ben. And then he retired about a year and a half later. And by then I was a shark feeder. I was doing all this thing. And he said, you really have a gift with hand.
And that takes us from there. The thing started in 1994, and how people really was looking at shark diving and shark industry, because back then really there was nothing called that. It was not like these days, not like what's happening now. It's accepted now, and how these things were actually people looked at it and how they perceived it, and then moving forward.
Well, So the first concept of shark diving in general goes back to the concept of sharks, and it's one of the biggest thing I teach to people is when we talk about sharks, we need to start talking species related, right? Everybody goes, oh, shark this is bad or shark this is good, but there are 522 species of sharks in the world, one of which is the size of a pen and one of which is the size of a bus. And some are crustacean feeders, as mollusk feeders, fish feeders, some as mesoteric feeders. Not all are apex predators, and some are plankton feeders, which is the closest you could say to a vegetarian shark. Technically it's not, but so there's so many different ways of diving with sharks. So I think it needs to be, first of all, a species related, right? And then from the species related, we need to look into location. The behavior of a great white from South Africa is very different from the behavior of a great white in Guadalupe Island, just because the environmental conditions, the interaction. So when we start saying, well, what I do here will work there, it's like, yeah, no, one size does not fit all. Once we go into that, then shark diving can vary. It could be that you go in the water with sharks that are provisioning onto natural resources. So I can go to South Africa and do the sardine run, right? Which is very much supernatural and fantastic, but at the same time, there's one of the core things that I teach. You have to be able to control the food in order to be able to control the sharks. You can then go into chumming situations where people toss the food off the boat and then people jump in, and that again brings in some issues depending on the species. And then you can go into direct what I do, which is hand feeding. Some people here in the Bahamas do it with a spear. We do it directly with a hand.
Or from the box sometimes.
From the box and all that. And it brings in all sorts of other considerations. So the perception, unfortunately, is when you hear shark feeding, everybody just go into gaping jaws, sharks going rogue, and absolute chaos. Where for me is it has to go species, location, and operator specific. The perception,
exactly.
Yes, the perception is that the sharks will eat the food that the humans provide, and then the day the humans are not there with the food, but the humans are there. Let's say I go feed the sharks, and then tomorrow I'm just guiding the divers. The sharks will turn around and start biting the legs of my divers off, and that is very incorrect. There's plenty data that demonstrates that from practical experiences. The sharks are capable of discerning when an individual has food and when the other individual that is even 5-6 feet away doesn't have food, and that is
and that will lead us to the question, Cristina.
Perhaps
saying that we're having here a lot coming that feeding versus not feeding. That lots of people that you, of course, and many of people who actually follow your trade, that having the food and having to feed and control while feeding, that you're saying. And some people are saying no, but when you guys feed, you're taking them out of their natural habitat, you're giving them food, you're making them. So all the big debate of feeding or no feeding, or chumming or no chumming. So where do you stand on this?
Well, I'm a feeder, so
I know. We both. I understand that. I'm just trying to tell people why feeding is not causing that damage as they think they are.
Well, so we've done, in the Bahamas, there was extensive DNA research done on sharks that are fed on a regular basis. And I found that less than 1% of the composing of the DNA was actually the food that was sourced to them by the feeders. So that basically reveals that the sharks have been feeding on the reef itself and provisioning with external food. We also have proofs like post-Hurricane Dorian, as much as post-Hurricane Francis, or any of these natural events when the feeders are not going out, most likely after COVID-19, the sharks do not starve. The sharks do not become dependent, and they can continue their work on the reef itself. Furthermore, what it does, it doesn't change their behavior. And again, we have data which is collected through daily logs of sharks leaving to go on the mating season, sharks leaving to go and give birth, disappearing, although there's the presence of food, because naturally they lose that sense of appetite when they come into the mating season. So there's quite a lot of data out there, which is proved by about 30 years of shark diving alone in the Bahamas, never mind the rest of the world, that the sharks will continue with their migratory. The great hammerheads of Bimini show up in the winter. They are not here in the summer. You can feed as much as you want. They are not here in the summer. The tiger sharks of Tiger Beach are in the winter and they're transitioning through. They will not be here as the water warms up.
Yes, but before the feeding started, for example, in Tiger Beach, there was no tigers come on the shallow parts. And then from feeding and feeding and feeding, started becoming more and more common to find them, yes, in their season, of course, but still before getting feeding a lot, they were not used to come in this direction. So does this may mean that the feeding had made an effect for them to change their ways or change their characteristics or something like this?
What do you mean with shallows? They are on the little Bahama bank. That is shallow. That is 20
yes,
feet.
I know. Yes, I know. I mean, before the feeding, they were not coming here.
Yes, they were. That's how they were found. Gemma Bernati was the first one that found them
with the
there.
same numbers and same everything?
The numbers vary. That's the difference, right? So if you go in a low season, you might have one tiger. If you go in the winter time, you may have 5 to 10 tigers. Have the numbers change in our congregation? Perhaps, but then you have to think as the operators spread, not every day, not every season, they have the same numbers. And you have time of the year where there's no tigers, no matter how much the operators go out there. And there are operators still going out there and still taking your money to take you out there, but there's no sharks.
Of course, yeah, they will, yeah, that's for sure. Did you
Has
ever
it changed?
notice?
Do my sharks congregate? Yes, they do. So one of the things we experience at the beginning of the shark dive is the number of sharks in the location increased. And it went from 20 to 30. However, it dropped down and has remained constant in the last 22, 23 years in the 20 to 22 numbers. So there was most likely a peak into the interest for the food source, but there was not enough sustainability on the reef itself for the sharks to maintain that high number. I also have a population, a resident population that is less than 200 meters away from where we feed. And they physically do not come in on the feed. They actually roam the entire rest of the reef, but don't come in on the feed. So there's quite a lot of behaviors that are not necessarily do that.
Did you notice any behavior change from to them or to their diet due to the feeding?
Yes. One that is
so?
Actually one of the scares me the most. They're actually not as afraid of boats and not as afraid of divers, which puts them more at risk. But they haven't become any more aggressive or anything like that, if what you're asking.
Okay, guys, I hope you hear that correctly. Put them, not us. Huh? So
it does put them because
it put them more at risk, not us. Huh?
To me, it's that they become more like relaxed. You're swimming around this entity that they've come to recognize, especially here, you know, making noises, wearing bubbles, having a tank, and they're like, oh yeah, this is, you know, this Muppets that are swimming down here, they'll be gone in 15, 20 minutes. They sure do make a lot of noise. And instead of running away, they actually stay. So if they were in a different environment, and that is where there was a risk in Mexico, is a feed and the sharks put the sharks at risk when there's no legislation to protect the sharks. Then the fishermen can go and say, oh yeah, this is where usually the sharks gather at a certain time of the day, and they can go and fish them out. So in my opinion, actually puts them more at risk. Sharks in the Bahamas have been protected since 2011. You can't touch them.
Yes, I understand. So beside the tourism benefits and the benefits from people with the shark industry benefits in general, what other benefits could that feeding actually give the sharks or give us to understand from?
There's quite a lot of benefits as the sharks are regulators of the entire food web. Where there's a shark's presence has been also proven that there is a higher variety of creatures of all levels, from the grass feeders to the mesoteric feeders all the way to the apex predators. So, for example, the Bahamas has side industry, which is a fishing industry, primarily for lobster, conch, crab, and some of the groupers. And I know some people are like, well, what does sharks have to do with the lobsters? And that is the thing. We don't really know the extent of some of these animals' presence in the ecosystem, regardless of sharks. We're talking about even wolves or bears or anything like that. And so a healthy environment with a lot of sharks has proven to have a healthier ecosystem. And when a healthier ecosystem actually is allowed to develop, it actually is proven that it is advantageous for other human-related activity like fishing. Fiji is one of the most amazing examples because they actually have something that it's a little bit different structure because of the societal system there. So let's say you have a village owns the ocean, something that doesn't happen in the Bahamas. So they own a property of the ocean in front of the coastline of their village. And what some of the operators have been doing there is they've been basically saying, well, if you don't fish in this area where I'm going diving and doing the shark dives, right? We'll have, for example, people pay a fee to dive here that will be donated to the village, where the young people can have a scuba diving education, find jobs that are not just fishing. But the phenomena they've experienced is where the village goes a fishing, there's actually more fish than before, because fish doesn't know boundaries. So as they're protected in one area and they actually developed in numbers, it actually overflows in the neighboring sides, and it actually provides more sustenance for the entire population. It then has an educational value. We started with a program that is scuba diving, but not everyone stays as a scuba diver, but you create people that then become ambassadors in general for the environment. Because once you start loving sharks and scuba diving, then you also want to protect more. So a lot of my former students are now scientists or even police force. During the COVID, I called one of my former students and I was like, Brunson, how is it going with the sharks? What's happening? And him being in the police force was able to tell me what they're doing, what they're patrolling. And he's very keen in making sure that sharks are protected. Commerce is not, like poaching is not happening and all of that. So you create a web and a work that goes beyond just the shark tourism itself. And the other thing that people don't realize is shark tourism is being calculated in the Bahamas at $109 billion. But what people don't realize, $1 million. But what people don't realize is that's specifically calculated on the price that people pay to go shark diving. It doesn't include hotels, restaurants, different activities, people that come with a family that do other excursions. It doesn't include souvenirs, none of that stuff. So it's very much a thriving industry that leaves pretty much everything else more in balance.
Absolutely. So Cristina, let's take us a bit more about your work in Bahamas, and then let's move slowly towards your course you're giving. And tell us what kind of sharks that you generally do the course with. And everyone is asking about the suit you keep putting on, and what is the suit, and what is actually the whole thing is all about.
So I work primarily with Caribbean reef shark. It's called Carcarinos perezi. And there is a little resident population of nurse shark as well, but I don't specifically work directly with them. We just have to basically deal with them. And it's about 3 or 4 of them, 5 sometimes, that come, not all the times. It might be one day, one the other. The initial work that I did was to do the shark dive. So
sorry, Cristina, if you want to take the Caribbean shark to make it closer to people from this side of the world, because we don't have them here in Middle East. So if we want to make it a little bit closer to what grays,
gray reef shark,
right? They're more the
gray
same.
reef sharks.
It is very close.
However, they don't share the same DNA. It's a totally different DNA.
I understand. I'm just trying to to make it more relevant to our audience
Yes.
here, that they used to see the gray shark. So it's more of, guys, more of very similar to the gray shark we see always in our waters and so on. Okay.
Yeah. The first job that I did basically was to go down there, feed the sharks, attract the sharks. As the sharks swam around me while I was interacting with them, they will swim over the divers that were in a stationary position. I work in about 15 meters of water, stationary position, down in the sand. The divers are motionless. They have to be shoulder to shoulder, and they have safety divers. This is during the feeding, not when we go swimming with the sharks and there's no feeding. I then developed this one-on-one course that Ahmed took, and I either tailor it to people on one-day experience. It's private, it's one-on-one, it's private dives, and the person wears what I wear, and I take them through understanding sharks, working with sharks. And one of the things I always tell them is, the sharks are not in a classroom. It's not their job to adapt to you. It's our job to adapt to them. And I am their shortcut. So I can tell the difference in behavior depending on the weather. Something is disturbing them. They're a little bit more in high energy, lower energy. There's a lot of current, no current. And the people that come and do this course, it's an interactive course for their own pleasure. But a lot of people have made them really realize there's something different about sharks, about themselves, and sometimes about the mission in their lives and how actually they can change this. And then I use these interactions also to support science. So some of the things we've been doing is a photogrammetry measuring of all the sharks. Have a little tool to laser measure the sharks, so we don't have to fish them, we don't have to hook them, pull them by the boat. You can just swim by them. You don't even have to feed them. You swim along them and you just point these two lasers into the side of the sharks, and then at home there's a chart. You do a screenshot of the shark and then measure, and you can have like total length, focal length, and you can measure also how they grow. I have a full collection of all their identification marks because I'm so long down in the water with them, I can recognize each and every one of them. At first, through physical characteristics. With time, some of them I even recognize as they swim towards me. Just the way they swim and they move, I can tell who it is. So we have this data that also tells us how long they're there, when they go, when they come, when they stay. And so this altogether has brought quite a lot of attention into what is the work. And the people that start seeing this, and one of my concepts is, my approach is a personal approach. I wanted a little bit to have people to start looking at sharks in a different way than what we hear or what is always portrayed. I received quite a lot of messaging saying, oh, I never seen sharks swimming so peacefully around people. And it's just like, well, yes, because most of the TV programs out there, even to this day, instigate this bite. So they tease the poor animals with this fish, and as the shark goes to bite the fish, they pull it away, and the shark is like, trying to bite into the air. So people are used to see gums, teeth, gaping jaws, and they don't realize the sharks are just another animal as part of the ecosystem. And it is, so my thing is, let's look at them as animals. I want people to start connecting with them on a different level. The suit is what also basically says, yes, sharks are good to swim with and to be with. However, when you're doing certain activities, you need to protect yourself. If I'm sitting in the grass and there are bees are flying around me, I'm okay with it. If I want to go and harvest honey, I will wear a beekeeper suit. And that is the difference. Exactly. If I'm swimming in the ocean with sharks, I will go down there swimming with my wetsuit, my scuba gear, no problem. If I am hand feeding sharks, I will wear my chainmail suit to avoid what is called an accidental bite, which usually is caused by my mistake. Because underwater, due to the density, I'm moving so slow compared to the speed of a shark. So we work on the time and on placement, but we're still a little bit sluggish, if that makes sense. So the suit becomes then the barrier that drops the barrier between the divers and the sharks and allows that connection right? That is the same connection that you could have if you're climbing with a harness and a helmet. It's an extra level of safety that allows you then to relax and do a nice interaction from my sharks. I don't, but most of the hooks are removed is within the group of my sharks.
Yeah. So I just want to throw in a comment on the suit there, because I still remember, although our course has been 10 years ago, but I still remember one specific comment you mentioned to me, and actually I use it in my talks as well. So in the beginning, when I was just still showing me and trying to get me the movement or planning for feeding, and then you told me you will start being a better feeder when you trust the suit. And I was like, okay, what do you mean by trusting the suit? And then when you get your first bite. And then when it happened, and then I stopped from the feeding in, and then the sharks got a little bit anxious, and then we broke Eddie's poor camera's filter. I remember the red filter from sharks being a bit annoyed from me not feeding as much. But it does give this extra sense of security. It does make you let you feel more comfortable with the sharks. And what is great about the experience with the course that Cristina is giving is that you actually overcome a lot of the problems and a lot of misconceptions that people have from, yes, I'm there, I'm standing on the bottom of the ocean, I have sharks all around me, I have a tube full of sardine, and they really don't give any reaction that on your mind. If I did not put the sardine properly in front of the shark's mouth, he will just look the other way and leave. And that for me was the first thing that this is impossible. I was always under the impression, and once I get the sardine out of my hand, I'll have like a fight of sharks trying to take my hand off, and it's not. It's really, you find the other fish really coming before the shark, and this is where Cristina uses her stick to fight off the other fish of the sharks.
Not anymore. I trained them.
Really? No. It's okay.
I talked to the grouper. I don't need the stick anymore. I talked to her with hand signs. So I make her wait, and I feed her at the end of the dive.
Cristina, the fish have different. Do you feel different personalities in the dive?
Is an excellent tool. It doesn't make up for what is between your ears. Your place, the suit is there's like, you can have the seatbelt on. If you don't know how to drive a car, the seatbelt is not going to help much. See, yes, the sharks still have very much different personalities. There's also hierarchy amongst them. The older and bigger females tend to be the dominant one. They have a way more relaxed approach, I think, because they're also more aware of their environment and what the situation is. Where the new sharks that come in, at first they're very sketchy. They tend to stay away from us, with this noise making chainmail, all these vibrations that we send out, and it takes them a while to say, "Well, am I going?" So they smell the fish, but like, yeah, I'm not sure I want to really enter. This doesn't feel like normal. They also have different personalities among themselves. Not all my sharks allow me to pet them, for example. So some sharks may come in and I go to pet them. They're like, yeah, no, don't touch me. I find it funny. A lot of people say my sharks are like dogs, and I tell them they're more like cats. So when they want to hop in your lap, they'll come into your lap and purr and walk around you. And when they're not interested, they're not interested. And there's nothing you can do. And Ahmed can tell you this. If a shark doesn't want to go to sleep, there's no chainmail, there's no touch, there's nothing for that shark to relax. It has to be the right shark at the right time with the person in the right state of mind. Some sharks are a little bit, let's say, more relaxed, right? Some are excellent feeders. Like, I think because of their personality, they're very fun to feed and easy to feed. Some sharks, especially the one that maybe have some minor body disabilities, might be a little bit more intense because they have to work harder to catch their food. So it's just a matter of understanding who is working and doing what. And I've named all my sharks.
Yes, I remember.
Primarily after physical characteristics. So, so that
There was
somebody
one with the
that comes
bump.
in, yeah, with a scrunchy, with a hole in his head.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and he's still here, and he's a boy.
Okay,
But
really?
like, instead of giving them the name, you know, Sophia, Maria, you know, Annalisa, and something like that, I pick names that are a little bit, sometimes a little bit weird. So let's say, I don't know if you see, but I have like a scar under my eye. If somebody saw me and it says, oh, that's Scar, right? Because every time you see the scar under the eye, they'll say, okay, that's Scar. And the reason why I pick those names is because I want someone that's never been in the water with them. If I say, well, that's Sophia, they'll be like, yeah, okay, it's a great, you know, it looks the same. But if I say, no, that's Crook because her fins are slightly bent inwards, people can immediately, if I go, hey, Crook, and they see the fins, they're like, oh, Crook. And once you make that connection, you can actually lower the status of sharks from monsters to animal. And I say animal, which means it still deserves the respect, knowledge and understanding and precautions of any wild animal out there. And that is, I think, the problem that we have. People go, oh, they do this. And it's like, well, no, they don't. But it's an animal. And so do accident happens? Yet they might happen. Are they as numerous as people make them to be? Absolutely not. There are PADI issues. They said there's 20 million certified PADI divers in the world. We have about 2 million visitors in the water per year in the Bahamas. We have tigers, lemons, bull sharks, Caribbean reef sharks, blacktip, nurse sharks, oceanic whitetips, and over 2 million people a year go swimming in the water here in the Bahamas. So what we need to do is stop going into the stereotype, and in a certain way, we can analyze some of the accidents, but at the same time, we have to say, you know what, you entered the ocean, it happened, it was an accident. Were there circumstances that enhanced the accident, or was it simply the fact that you enter an animal's territory? And I think that is where we need to take down the monsters to the animal level.
Absolutely. Let me catch up with some questions because the guys have been sending some questions. So let me pop a couple of them for you.
Yes.
So we have, let's see, we talked about the hooks, and then
I'm going to talk to Sarah because this goes back to what I was just saying.
Sarah, okay.
It says, so since most diving and shark feeding is currently tied up due to COVID, and given that this practice has been ongoing daily for years and in the same spots, do you think the behavior might change once you're back in the water? Assume it might take months before things are back to normal. No, because I just said, because after hurricanes, we don't go back in the water because maybe we don't have business. So we've been doing this for years where we feed and then we can't feed because for 2 or 3 months we're shut down due to a hurricane devastation. And I've seen this back in 2004. We took a break in 2005. We had another break in 2012. We also had a big break in 2017. We also had a break after Dorian. So COVID is nothing different than going back after a hurricane. So their behavior won't change. You want to pick one?
Let's say about accidents. Yes, I'm thinking some people asking about accidents. Do you have like, and we also, I want to also take this to a little bit to our Red Sea, because last year, 2018 itself, we had a little bit of an accident-filled year for with the oceanics for many reasons. But what do you think with accident with sharks in general? Since being in the water with sardines, with food, and nothing is happening, I know I've been there, and you do it every day, day in, day out. So what do you think happened, and why the odd accidents happens? What's wrong there usually?
Well, the odd accidents, because it requires a lot of analysis. And the first one is, I think, identification of the shark species. as well as the person's behavior and relationship as they were in the water. So those are the three things that I will look at. What kind of shark was it? What was the person doing, and where was the person in the water column? And that alters depending on the type of sharks. I'll give you an example. Here in the Bahamas, you can easily go scuba diving with tigers, right? But the transition between the bottom and the surface, you need to be very careful. Nor you're allowed to float on the surface, because the tiger is a surface hunter. So one of the biggest procedures is when you hit the water at Tiger Beach is down, down, down. Right, so you have to arrive there with your buoyancy adjusted and your weights and all of that. So I think those are the three things. Accident happens in the way is we maybe have, and some of them I don't have an explanation. I might not have an explanation. I looked into one of the Red Sea, and it just could be that in that moment, specifically, the shark made the decision through a series of check marks through
Which
their
one you saw,
system.
Cristina?
The one I saw was a video from another diver, and it was a scattered of people everywhere. This diver looked to be like several meters, if not 10 to 12 to 20 meters below where the accident happened, because the shark looked at this big. And the shark came into one or two people, and it ended up biting the calf on one of the two divers as the diver started swimming backwards.
That's the main big one we had.
And I had people sending me the video and say, well, what do you think? And I'm like, I can't think. There's not enough information for me from this little video. I didn't know, who was the group, why is everybody was like, one was diving the 6 meters level, the other one was down on 20, 30 meters. I have no idea, were they guided, were the single people, was it a drift dive? And I've never been there, so I don't even know what the situation there is.
Absolutely.
What it feels is in that shark was very intense, was definitely looking for something. And I don't know what triggered the bite, but the bite is basically, in my opinion, is that the shark in that moment decides that that part of the body or whatever they bite, in film shoots is a surfboard, it's actually food. So in that moment, the shark goes, checks a box, check, I'm going to bite, because chances are this is food.
The process of the bite, it takes, so we talk about, they have more yeses than no's, then he will give it a shot. So
yes, and it is really interesting, because it's really and again, it is unfortunate for the person, don't get me wrong, it's terrible. It is one of the most terrifying thoughts to be eaten alive or bitten like that. It's a fear that we have lost, right? We used to do that back a few thousand years ago. You come out of your village and somebody chopped your head off and put it on a stick somewhere, right? And we're talking about 1,000 AD in Europe. People were still, chopping their heads off and all that. But we lost that concept. We've kind of like, no, you can get out of the house and be kind of okay, depending on the city you live in.
I'll take you back to your course, Cristina, and you're doing. And they know it's you, Cristina, since you've been diving with them almost every day. Do you think your sharks know you, your babies, I know, as you like to call them?
I do.
Do you think they actually, mommy's here?
I think they do. And I had also some of my crew telling me that they do. Sometimes when I teach, I may leave the student with the fish and I move away, and some of the main sharks move with me instead of staying with the student with the fish, because they feel more comfortable. I have a lot of people say, well, how do they recognize you with all that, paraphernalia on? And I try to remind people they have 8 senses. Right, so it's not just a matter of seeing me. Most likely they can smell me. One of the things we forget, they have a very strong sense of scent. So my natural odor, the one that exudes from my skin, I do believe the sharks can smell the difference between me and someone else on the water. They can feel my heartbeat, my brain waves. So they can feel and detect movements. So they can also feel like the status of one person versus the other. So I do believe they recognize me. I've done some pictures with friends where I went down, free diving, and like I was completely a free diver, and I had the grouper coming straight to me. There was other scuba divers around, and the grouper was just kind of like zeroed into me, like, Same with the sharks. I had foggy eye. I was doing another photo shoot. And again, I had no food, but she just zeroed and just came and just swam right around me for the entire time, which made for some phenomenal pictures. And it was no food in the water. So yeah, I do believe they have some sort of level of recognition.
That's nice. Okay, moving from the Caribbean sharks, I know you fly to when things were normal, do some work with the bull sharks in the bull sharks.
Oh, Fiji. I was with Bent Adventure Divers in Fiji. I was a guest.
And how that makes a difference. Actually, now we're talking about an apex predator, one of the big boys, the bull. And I know you go there without your suit, because obviously it's not going to do much difference there. And how this is really different than with your own sharks in Grand Bahama.
So I've done the bulls both in Mexico and Fiji, and they're two totally different environments. They don't use the suit because they do not allow the bulls to come within the surrounding that the divers are in, including the feeders. So the feeder is a standing, and this is topographical issues, right? So Fiji is like this diving. So you stand at the edge where the rocks are and out into the blue. I even have to change hand. I'm a left-handed rider and feeder. And in Fiji, my friend that invited me said, if you want to feed here, so we're more than welcome to let you do it and try. Do you want to do it? So you have to feed from the left to right using your right hand. So I actually learned that. They wear a chainmail glove. The chainmail, it's not needed because you don't have sharks swimming around your legs, but the glove is there. And an accidental bite from a bull might protect still, but what the chainmail is good also is texture, right? So obviously this is a different demographic, but like imagine you do like a baked potato, all nice wrapped up in tinfoil and put it under the bonfire, and then you pull it out, you peel off your tinfoil. By mistake, you bite down on the potato and a piece of tinfoil. When it goes under your teeth, the instinct is like, tinfoil. So when a shark bites down on a chainmail, the texture is nothing like something that they eat. And so even with the bull, be more like, oh my goodness, sorry, I made a mistake. So I had to change hand I was feeding, not wearing the suit, and feeding as the operator required me to do. We go back to that one size does not fit all. What works with my Caribbean did not work there. So I follow their procedures and the way.
And out of these sharks, Cristina, which one is your favorite shark to dive with? Because this is also a question coming from Mike. Which one is your favorite shark and to work or with, and why?
Well, the Caribbean reef sharks will always be my favorite shark to work with and be with, just because of the amazing relationship that I've been able to build with them. But I have a little bit of a fascination free diving with the blue sharks, which are more colder water. I just found them so elegant, and their colors are so fascinating. So, and we go to the opposite, right? And this one, I'm standing on the ocean floor in 20 pounds, 10 kilos chainmail doing a certain kind of activity. And then the other one is I am free diving, breath hold diving, kind of like expressing my body and the movement with the sharks in a different way. So maybe that's the reason why I'm attracted to both. I really love those two.
That's nice. Okay, you can go ahead and pick two questions from the guys, because I don't want to be. They
goodness.
Go and tell me, oh, why didn't you say mine? They say mine, so you get pick two, and then I'm going to move to the next subject.
So obviously, sharks control the ecosystem in the region. So doesn't feed and add another prey to those sharks instead of, for example, sardine, and doesn't that in turn increase the population of sardines, decrease the population of sardines prey, which in turn harms the entire ecosystem in the region? No. The reason why is some operators elect to feed scraps of fish, right? So the results of a fishing industry, they go and buy the fishing industry scraps and feed them back into the sharks, which if you think about it from a natural point of view, if this was a fish that died of natural causes, it will be completely consumed instead of being extracted from the ecosystem. In some places like mine, I outsource the food to being from like mackerel, so a different source, and it's a very sustainable fishing industry, so it doesn't affect the ecosystem in itself. What is recommended not to do is to spear live fish and try to feed to the sharks at the same moment, also because that causes like a reaction on the animals that is a little bit beyond the normal control. But it has proven it has no effect on the ecosystem because it's recycled within. And then, like I said, it doesn't create dependence, and the sharks are still capable of going and eat the food that is in the ecosystem. You need to remember, especially Caribbean reef sharks, but also bull sharks, tiger sharks will not go out after a healthy live prey. They will go after a prey that is maybe dying, dead, decaying, injured. So they have a cleaning system.
Okay, you want to pick another one?
Have you ever been bitten? Like a big bite, not bite while feeding? No, I never. Actually, the worst bite I had was, it was still in a feeding situation, but I wasn't feeding him. It was the nurse shark. He sucked my toes into his mouth. And that actually hurts more than a regular shark bite because they suck and grind. So he was down on the floor, and I was kicking a little bit of sand, and he came in, he went and slurped my toes in, and he went and then let them go. And I was like, ow, it felt like I stabbed my toe against a rock. But no, I've never had a big bite besides when I'm feeding. When I'm feeding, I have, the occasional bite here or there, but nothing major.
That's great. So that will take us move along a little bit to all your efforts in conservation. And yes, we doing the shark dive, doing the feeding, it's all fun and everything, but it's not going only for fun, but actually it's going for a cause that we're trying to make people more understand what's happening and appreciate sharks and why they are important, and all these big lessons and big messages we're trying to pass on. So tell us more, Cristina, about your conservation efforts and how we can actually spread that and how we can educate people more on sharks.
Well, some of the work that I've been doing has been, one of the things that I'm a firm believer on is the power of one. And my dogs will be about to bark. So if I can communicate what I'm trying to do to someone else and they can take it for me, that for me is very, very important. And the conservation can come in different ways. It can come through specific raw science, data, information, decision making. It can come from a financial point of view, like which is the one that I pointed out when we went with the government, was a financial advantages for the environment, advantages for the local people. Let's highlight like local people. Being a resident of the Bahamas for 26 years, this is my home. I have full, permit and all of that. But it's the biggest one for me is creating ambassadors. I speak 5 languages, but they're not enough. And through the years, I've received these students that come from all over the world. And they do speak languages that I don't speak. So, I speak these 5, then we have English in common, then they speak maybe another 2 or 3 or 4, or I don't know. And what is allowed to do is my message travels through someone else in a different language. So the conservation work I do is I either allow people to invite me in. So I've been invited to China, I've been invited to Singapore, I've been invited in Hong Kong, in places to talk against a shark finning, shark fin soup by the local people who can speak the language but also know their culture. And so my course for me is exactly that bridge. And Ahmed is the perfect example. He is the next ambassador. I spoke to one person, him, right? And today there's over hundreds of you here. Maybe few came because of me, but I watched the messages and I'm watching the names. I said, most of you came because of Sharky. So Sharky in his language and in his culture and in his way of relating to all of you has done way more work than I could have ever achieved if I even tried. Or if I even helicopter myself even to Egypt and start going blah, 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 blah. Instead, what happens is he's just doing a better and wider job. And that is where my conservation works, is I transfer this to someone else and say, here it is, go with it. Just like a football player, run, touchdown, and exchanges communication in a different way. And that for me is a fundamental, is let the local language and the local people speak to the through the local language and to their local people. And I think it has a wider impact.
And if we're going to go and look on how people perceive sharks, and that actually will take us back to how the media, how Hollywood, how the movies are actually making sharks looks, and how they always put them as the big animals, fearless, brainless, wants to just feed, and so on. And how can we actually move that, and how can we do some efforts to correct all these kind of wrong images and wrong ideas?
I think that comes from an individual. It comes from, maybe we should stop watching these programs that feed us high adrenaline. Maybe we should stop praising gaping pictures and showing teeth. Maybe we should also stop expecting each encounter to be like a high heart pumping experience. And maybe we should stop surfacing from the water. It's like, whoa, I survived out of shark experience, or I've been swimming in shark infested water. So they say for shark fin soup, you know, when the demand stops, also the killing will discontinue. Well, here's the same. If we change our approach as divers, as swimmers, and people that want to go in the water, and we start expecting the operators to take us into like a smoother, more relaxed and natural experience. Like, I do feed the sharks, but all you see in my videos is sharks swimming over me, around me, and all of that. It's never like big jaws and teeth showing or anything like that. And if we do start asking the operator more of that kind of experience, if we start asking TV programs to have more of that view, hey, can I have a documentary about this shark that doesn't include, you know, splashing of fins on the surface, you know, and scary music, maybe it can change. The problem is in our fast society, it has been demonstrated that people lose attention into a video that started playing within 5 seconds of the video playing. So usually even positive documentaries or positive programs that talk about sharks to start with that heightened music, the splashing up the sharks, and oh, this person is going to do this, ooh, scary, scary. And then they smooth into the, well, that was not so bad. And as you can see, it was amazing. Maybe we should start with just that and just the truth, right? It's okay to jump inside the ocean. However, this is how we're going to do it. And this is how I want you to behave and all of that. I saw a question about the movie.
Yeah.
I disagree with that concept. I understand the movie did a lot of damage, but we can't really blame the movie, nor we can blame Peter Benchley's novel. Let me repeat the highlight of the 2 words: movie, novel. It doesn't say documentary, science book. So he wrote a novel. He wrote a fantasy book, and the movie was a fantasy movie. Did he do some damage? Yeah. Very well filmed. Congratulations, Spielberg, for doing something like that. Do you have to blame the movie or the people that watched the movie for not being able to make a mental note of saying, wait a minute, I just watched the movie? So why is the movie so bad is because I think it triggers back into that being eaten alive. As a human species, we're extremely arrogant. That's our problem. We're arrogant.
Yeah.
We have expanded, evolved, conquered, moved. I mean, we have moved the environment to our world, to our capabilities. We can live in the most extreme environments. The desert, the ice, the rainforest, with all their things, the savanna, right? With the floods and the droughts and all that. There's one environment we can't live in. You can tell me what you want, but no. I put you 4 hours, 6 hours in the Red Sea in your mother's, birth suit, how your mother created you, you will last very, very little. You can't swim, very small. You can't breathe. You have no hypothermic capabilities. You can't see. Most of your senses are, you can hear something that comes from all over the place, and you can't use your environment to your advantage. You can't say, hey, I'm going to take a breath here and huddle underneath this rock till the boat comes and picks me up tomorrow morning. So in a certain way, the shark represents this, like perfect machine that comes along in this extremely hostile environment, which triggers our primordial, primitive fear of being eaten alive, which we have lost everywhere else, but in the ocean.
That's fantastic. And we know that you recently started another NGO or agency, the People of the Water, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, can tell us more about that. And then we have another forest of questions. So let's go through your People of the Water, and then we look a little more about the questions again.
Yes. So People of the Water is a non-profit. It's a 501c3 US registered non-profit. And the reason why I did that is because being in the Bahamas is very close to the United States, allows tax deductions for people that donate. And it was created to allow me to continue this exploration, education, and conservation work that I've been doing for quite some time. Hopefully on a bigger scale. A lot of this work that I do, especially a lot of the cave exploration, a lot of the BNT work that I'm doing with them is done on my own time, on my own money. I do, after work, on my days off, I put in all the money for the fuel, for the gear, for everything that I need to do, for all my special advanced tools, my rebreather, this and that. And so the nonprofit is supposed to help me out support this physical work, and then a little bit of I'm going to close the windows of people on the deck just talking. You like that live thing, right? So also help me support quite a lot of the educational part. So like I've been invited many places to go and talk. Yeah. I've been doing quite a lot of webinars since I've been home, and these are supposed maybe to sometimes help with maybe travel expenses or being able to reach out to educating more people. The future goals, we have two major ones. One is to I want to be able to tag two of my girls, one pregnant and one that is going to mate, and verify where they go for both. While sharks are protected, there's still some areas of the island that are under scrutiny for development, like massive development. And I want to make sure that maybe we find the area where they go and protect the area so that will not be developed and take away their breeding and nursing ground. And then that will be the first one. It requires a couple of satellite tags. And then the next one is I want to open up a training for local. For me is for local. So being able to train someone through the scuba diving all the way to the professional level through the nonprofit as well. So quite a lot.
Why only locals, Cristina? You should open it for everyone.
I want to start. It's a small nonprofit. It's basically two of us in the team right now, and all the administrative stuff is there's one lady that volunteers her accounting services, and she's absolutely fantastic, but then the rest is basically managed by me and another person. And so I thought, well, first let's do something small here, and then if I'm able to grow it through donations and things like that, then open it up to more people. Local, because depending on the amount of donation, it might be easier to train someone that lives on the island, doesn't have to fly in and pay for accommodation, and I can just actually dedicate really quite a lot of the funds to the training itself, if that makes sense.
Fantastic. Okay, let me help you with some questions because they've been coming here. So have you witnessed different behavior for the same shark species in different areas or regions, and why?
Yes, I have. I think a lot of it has to do with the environment that they're in. and then also the situation at that specific time. Visibility, I've noticed, no matter where you are, is a huge factor into sharks' behavior. The better the visibility, the more relaxed the animals. And again, I'm generalizing, right? Because a nurse shark doesn't really care, or a whale shark. But we're talking about here, when people say shark, maybe some of the shark that people go scuba diving with, some of the that are considered the apex sharks. So in general, visibility affects their behavior. The better the visibility, the more relaxed the animal behavior. The lower the visibility, the more the animal becomes very intense. I also notice differences in my shark's behavior. My sharks can detect when a hurricane is coming 3 to 4 days away. Their energy level heightens about 3 to 4 days out before a hurricane hits.
Really? That's interesting.
Yes, and I do believe they go into more of a provisioning mode. You know, like I've been telling this joke, it's kind of like a repeat joke, but people went and bought toilet paper as COVID-19 was spreading through the world. And I was like, well, why are you buying toilet paper? But the sharks go into more this, like, I need to eat. And I think they, you know, again, imagine the power of a hurricane coming, the barometric pressure dropping, they can feel it through the water and through their lateral line and through their system and electromagnetic field, so they become like more intense. So human behaviors affect them. I saw a question that was asking about, well, why, if your sharks are protected, they have hooks, and because sharks will be sharks, so they will go after fishermen's prey. Some fishermen come too close to Shark Junction, and although they're protected, you can't really monitor 24/7. So some people think it's still fun to come out there to hook the shark, just to thrash them around and do a little bit, you know, like hook and release.
Being the big boy, being the big boy,
and then cut the line. So I end up like with these hooks also that I do believe are, you know, like a consequence of people think it's still fun to do like this catch and release kind of thing.
That's great. How many days your course, and how can people actually book and get the course with you?
My course is either 1 day experience, so 1-on-1, 1 day, 2 dives, more like for the instructor. It's like a discover shark diving.
Seems I got away with the old version, so it's okay. That's nice.
No. There's 2, and then I have the 3-day course. So one is called 1 day experience, and you did the 3-day course. Yes, and then there's a 3-day course, which includes 4 dives, 1-on-1, observation dive, and then the entire theory talking about sharks and all of that.
Fantastic.
This being 1-on-1 on a private boat, obviously it's, as you know, is one of the reasons I created the 1 day experience is also to accommodate different budgets.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
You have to rent a full boat.
Yes. So Pierre from Australia is asking you about the new technology they having for sharks, and then try to convince the countries to use it instead of the drag lines and the shark nets and all that. What do you think of this new technology? Shark barriers installed.
Well, if I don't have data about something, I can't really express a complete opinion. I do believe that dragging sharks out of the water to make the ocean safer is barbaric, just to be kind to those people that do that. It'd be kind of like eliminate the birds out of the sky to avoid poop on your roof. I do believe there are ways to do maybe a distancing of sharks from certain areas. However, we also need to take in consideration why are the sharks there, right? What are their motivations? So if I'm distancing sharks from a certain area that then ends up being where they actually go for mating and breeding, that might not be a good idea. Maybe I need to distance the people from the area from going swimming over there. I'm just saying something extreme here. So there's quite a lot of analysis to be done, but ultimately I agree with you. Dragging sharks out of the water to make the ocean safe is just absolutely
crazy.
Demonstration of lack of knowledge.
Exactly. Many people are really happy and they want to go into conservation and they want to learn about surveying and research. So what would you recommend places or spots for them to start going, or the agencies or something like, the Bimini Lab, for example, or stuff like that? How can they start?
Well,
Do they have to be scientists? Do they have to be marine biologists?
No, I actually had a cool shark talk with a friend of mine. She's a scientist. You
Yeah, I
don't
saw
have
this
to
one.
be a scientist to be a conservationist. I think a scientist is a curious mind. So once you start asking questions and you want to know answers, that makes you in your own turf scientist. A lot of scientists were born from asking questions and then start studying about it and then found different answers. It depends on what the person wants to do. Bimini Shark Lab is fantastic, but Bimini Shark Lab is very much hands-on for a brief period of time for a lot of academia. If you want to be more hands-on like Sharky and I do, then comes different type of commitments, right? We're not just in the water with sharks. We have all sorts of like training, education, materials, paperwork. I wake up about 4:20, 4:30 in the morning on a regular week when I go diving, and even now just to tackle the emails that came in and the information and this and this, so then I can spend 6 to 8 hours on the boat to then come back and continue with what I have to do. My suggestion is to find places obviously where there are sharks, where working with sharks is legal. Please do so. You can do it at different levels. You can volunteer, you can intern, you can take a paid experience like Ahmed did and then continue and stay there a little bit longer, things like that. And experience different situations and environments, but also have an idea that the job is not just this, right? It's just very much a 360. So even the Bimini Shark Lab people spend a ton of hours putting in repetitive data. And they're eaten alive by insects. I've been in Bimini Shark Lab. It's absolutely brutal when you go out early, 3 o'clock in the morning to check the lines and see and collect data as mosquitoes and moses.
Yeah,
and,
when I paid them a visit, it was really like oh my God, this is it was like, whoa.
It can drive
so
you
difficult.
insane.
It is so difficult. Yeah, it is so difficult.
So try the experience and see what suits you. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to go into marine biology. Marine biology is 90% desk and 10% water in general. So if you want to more into an active thing, then you need to go into scuba diving. And when I say scuba diving, not just learn, just get your cards, but really expand your scuba diving capabilities, your buoyancy, your awareness, your skills, just even for a scientist, quite a lot of my scientist friends have quite a lot. They actually did the course with me. It's really cool. But they at least acquired the dive master level. And it's very simple, right? If you are, and it doesn't matter if it's just sharks, but if I have to send you out to collect data and you're an open water diver, I'll be like, open water diver, that's good, but you might need more supervision. And it's true, an open water diver with 1,000 dives might have way better skills than an instructor with 100 dives.
Absolutely,
however, the card at the end of the day speaks a little bit, right? So if now you're a scientist and you also have a dive master level, you'll find that the environment will be kind of like, okay, I know you are responsible, you understand this concept, and you can also collect data because you have all the other skills within. If you're youngest, just give it a try. Yes?
Oh, someone just opened his microphone by mistake. So.
By mistake.
Yep.
Okay, so I see this long comment by Spyro.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it says that I refuse to ever go out during feeding time. We have agreements on times of the day in the shops. 8:11 is no feeding, 11:13 is feeding, yada, yada. And I go out and I dive with the sharks. And it's like, good for you. They're there because they're feeding. So the people that come on my dive site and they say, well, we do the dive and we're now feeding, is like, in a certain way, the sharks have become comfortable with the divers and allow you to enjoy the non-feeding time because there was also a feeding in it. And that's what shark diving was started for. People were desperate to see sharks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And when they went in the water and they hit the water, all they caught was a tail.
Yeah.
So the first way they saw sharks was to go and find feeding grounds. Those are far away and are expensive. And they can be extremely dangerous. I don't know if you've ever done the sardine runs, but sometimes you do it with a helmet on.
Yeah.
So, where the shark feeding has brought this to the wider public and to more people. And again, has allowed even your person that comes here on vacation and does 6 dives a year, 10 dives a year, to actually go home with a shark experience that they could never dream of before, and with a renewed and capability of changing people's perception. I have countless of these stories. Remember this couple, they came, the husband in a shark feeder course. She would not go in the water unless it was a 15 meters dive in clear water,
Okay.
no sharks, no wrecks, no night dive. 6 years later, we were on a Tiger Beach trip together.
Okay.
With her going in the water once a day, diving with the tigers and the lemons. How do we do that? We build that slowly. The first time she was like, oh, I don't want to do it. Then one day she came, she said, well, I could just have a look. Right? And she had the look. She was like, oh, this is not bad. And then 2-3 years later, she came back. She said, well, can I just put the chainmail and stand next to you? And she did that. And then 2 years later, the three of us were on Tiger Beach trip, and she was in the water swimming with tigers and lemons and Caribbean reef sharks.
Of course, it's fantastic. She couldn't, yeah. Who wouldn't? What is the most uncommon and surprising behavior you witnessed from any shark species?
I would say the one that mine do, the trust that they put into allowing me to pet them and to relax into my lap. Mm-hmm. This is an animal that has all capabilities of not wanting to stay and wanting to swim away. And in that moment, they decide, I'm okay here. This is okay. And I know the difference because when, for example, I go to remove a hook and it hurts, they don't stay. They swim away and then come back and swim away and come back. So I know that in that moment when they decided to stay in my lap, is they're saying, this is okay. This is acceptable. So in a certain way is the most common one, and the one that I'm always so thankful for the privilege, because I think it's pretty magnificent that a shark allows to relax herself into my lap and feel extremely vulnerable.
Yeah. Cristina, you do free diving and you do scuba diving. Do you think sharks react differently to being on scuba or free diving?
Yes, very much. It depends again on the species. The species specific, and then it's also location specific. For example, my Caribbean reef sharks, when I free dive towards them, they actually don't like it. So if I'm on the surface, I ventilate, and then I start free diving down. As I glide down, they kind of like move a little bit further. When I settle down and I start swimming with them, then they're like, okay, it's you. And they come back close. And one of the reasons I believe is because when I'm free diving down, I'm 5'5", 170. With the long fins, I become a fairly big animal. And now I am now making those bubbles that tells them, oh yeah, that's bubbles, Cristina, right? I'm not having the usual noises that I make, and I start free diving with intent towards them. Well, this is an aggressive behavior, right? I'm coming to get you. So the sharks scoot away, and only when I level off with them, they actually sit there. So it's the same with other species. Some species actually love free divers or rebreather divers. Some species, they're not very happy with free divers nor rebreather divers, for example. There's
I think there was a question earlier about, do you think rebreather would actually so what do you think about
that? There's sharks that benefit from you being on a rebreather, and there's dives where you won't benefit from being on a rebreather. Again, it depends on the sharks. My Caribbean reef sharks become very territorial. So when I was down there on the rebreather, they were just really coming close, like, what is this? What is this? What are you? And when I had other rebreather divers on the dive, and I had a shark to sleep, I had all the scuba divers patting them. As soon as I had a rebreather diver trying to touch them, they were like, nope, you can't touch me. But then great hammerheads love rebreather divers, silence, they tend to run away less. So it's, again, we go back to the first thing I said, there's 520 plus species of sharks.
Absolutely.
We need to start thinking about going.
Yeah.
There's no general rule. I can't give you a general rule for how to dive with them, how to be with them, how to relax with them. It depends on the species. It depends on the location. It's very much targeted on the way you do things. There are general rules, yes, obviously, but like,
Yeah.
I can't give you like a full, like, oh, if you do this, you're going to be fine diving with all types of sharks.
Yeah. Okay, can you actually, Cristina, look at this question? It's coming from our team, and then the one named Deco Divers. So this is like targeted for women. So I don't know if you've seen it. 1007 from Deco Divers question from Becky, actually.
1007, so that will be 407. Obviously, you're highly respected. Is that one? Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Obviously, you're highly respected throughout the world for the work you're doing on a shark conservation. Has this always been the case, or did you face challenges as a woman wanting to dive with sharks? It's a tough one to answer. Luckily, I actually landed few mentors that were demanding on skills regardless of the sex of their student, which is pretty impressive. So one of my instructor trainers, Butch Hendrick, was tough. I mean, tough, but it was not tough trying to make women or men feel. He was just tough. And if you passed, he was like, I mean, supporting you, carrying you all the way. And if you didn't, then he worked with you and all of that. As a woman, I found more of a disrespect, not specifically with sharks, but like in a diving industry in general. It's like, oh, you're a girl, you can do that? Wow. It's just like, yeah. One of the ones that is the worst for me, and to this day, and I'm very defensive of my girls too, is driving boats. I can drive single screw, twin engine, inboard. I can dock 2 boats. I can tow and dock a boat to the side of my boat with 1 screw and all that. And one of the things that drives me the most crazy, if a guy said that, people are like, yep, man, thank you very much. See you later. When I do, they're like, oh, you docked a boat. It's like, you can do that. It's like, so it was not specifically with the sharks. I have to say, maybe with the sharks, it was the other way around. With the sharks, it was in a certain way, maybe diminishing, but, you know, it worked in a certain way. It's like, you're a woman and you work with sharks. It's the same with a boat, right? You're a woman and you dock a boat. So with the time, it worked to my advantage. What I've tried to do, though, through my career is I never walk through my career going, well, I'm a woman, and so this and this and this and this. I actually walk through my career and says, I want to be the best I can be, not the best woman I can be. I want to be the best I can be. Yeah. If other people then see, you know, look, you know, but you're a woman, it's like, that's their problem, their point of view. I will still work the best I can be. Did it require to jump sometimes higher and wave my arms a little bit more? And do I have to do more to be considered the same level? Sometimes, yes. But then sometimes I have to admit it worked very much to my advantage as a woman that worked with sharks, and it worked very much to the advantage of sharks.
Okay, guys, I'm actually have 1 or 2 more questions, and then if you guys don't have any, I'm just gonna, Cristina, can you tell us at the end a little bit of a very simple general, I know we agreed there is no general rule, but a very simple do and don'ts when you, for simple diving with sharks, for everyone really. Yes. Diving with them, yeah.
They're the 5 basic rules of scuba diving that I use for everything. 1, if you are planning a shark diving trip, you know, unless you're planning to sit in the pool and pet nurse sharks, we're talking about, you know, let's say more intense sharks, refresh your skills. Do not show up with a year without having been diving. Refresh your skills. Make sure you're comfortable with your mask. Make sure you're comfortable with your regulator. Make sure you're comfortable with your buoyancy, right? This is not the place to go, oh, I need a little bit more weight, excuse me. So refresh your skills. Take something, do a dive that it does involve the sharks or the high intensity. 1. 2, no new. That is a golden rule. I still apply it to myself. What does it mean? Oh, I'm going to go this special trip, and I'm going to take my brand new camera with my brand new dry suit with You can say 1, 2 things, 3.
Yeah.
Also in a brand new environment, let's say you decide to go to Cocos Island, now you have cold water and you have current and also, so no new. If you have something new, like a brand new camera, strobes, video lights, video camera, dry suit, BCD, go and chuck yourself in a regular dive that you're familiar with. It doesn't have to be the pool, but make sure that it's like, oh yeah, I'm very familiar with this dive. It's the medium shallow dive that I normally do. I'm going to go and try my brand new 7 mil, see how much weight I need. Right? So no new. Once you have those two, then mentally you're already 10 scales down in stress level.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
The other one is do your homework. Ask questions to your operators. How do they do it? How is it done? What are the rules? Is it going to be a safety diver? You know, all those things. Do your homework. But when you pick the operator, and this is the last one, is if you go there and you go in the water, you have to listen to the operator. You can't change your mind or your behavior because you hit the water and you think that what you're doing is not safe. If that's what you think you're doing is not within your parameters, then you sit out of the water. Because the moment there is a plan, regardless if a plan then is skewed or not or anything like that, and you agree to abide to that plan, when you hit the water, once you start not abiding to that plan, then you make it dangerous for yourself, for the crew, for the other customers, and for the sharks. So if you're not happy, then you can say, hey, wait a minute, guys, we had a plan and this didn't go as a plan. So you can still say that. But if there's a plan and is respected and you start moving out of that plan, then you need to stay out of the water.
Yeah.
And then the last one size does not fit all. So what works with one species of sharks in one environment doesn't work with the other ones. So don't just pull them all in one bundle.
They just need to come and dive with you or me, Cristina. That's it. Huh? That's the whole thing now.
There's quite a lot of very good operators out there. Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. This is very nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ask your questions.
Yeah.
Ask the operators questions. When people ask me questions, I send them. I have quite a lot of already on my website as well.
Absolutely.
We'd really like to dive with you in the Red Sea. Any plans for a deco diver safari soon?
It's been on the cards a couple of times and scheduling is not working. It didn't plan out. So in the future, yeah, we'll do our best to make it happen, Halafawi.
Yeah, might be a couple of years, right?
Yeah.
I have to recover from this.
Yeah, so we all have. Well, I don't know. I can thank you enough, Cristina, for this amazing talk.
Goodness.
Really, yes, exactly. It's been fantastic. I personally enjoyed it so much. Could stay for hours and hours. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everyone. I'm sure we went through as much questions as we could.
If you have more questions, you can always reach me through my website.
Absolutely.
It's www.cristinazenato.com. CRISTINAZENATO.
Write it on the chat if you want.
Here. And you can always send me a message, and I'll always happy to.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry. I sent it apparently to someone privately.
Okay.
I sent chat. Oh, because I have one clicked on. Never mind. I'm going to do it again.
Okay.
Technology. There it is.
That's it. Absolutely. So guys, you can log in on the websites and messages and emails and
I know we haven't answered all the questions, and I know there are questions that I can't answer, right? I can't give all the information about why a shark bites or why this happened. Is it, and I leave you with this and then that's it. Is it what I do 100% right or 100% wrong? I don't think so. It's never black and white. Is there a positive outcome of what I do? Absolutely. So far, the negative outcome has not shown itself, but I constantly evaluate what I do and how I am in the water with sharks. And that's just why from 10 years ago has already changed.
Absolutely. So
thank you guys. I'm very thankful for being here.
We're happy having you, Cristina. It's been fantastic. Keep your questions on the website, on social media. We'll do our best to answer them all. And stay tuned for volume 2, hopefully soon enough. Thank you, Cristina. It's been lovely.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.